It was late. Well, enough to pull the shades down from the windows. I had set my phone down after reviewing the busy workday I had planned for tomorrow. My husband was still brushing his teeth, so I figured I'd keep my eyes open to say goodnight to him before we turned in for the night. Well, that didn't turn out so well. I had knocked out from exhaustion. A sleep cycle later, and before you know it, I was gently shaken out of bed by my husband. I looked at the clock. It was around midnight. While curious and mildly frustrated from the sleep disturbance, I asked what was happening. After rubbing my eyes, I could tell from his face that it was a serious matter. He was wide awake and looked concerned. His eyes kept glancing back at the window. He told me that someone had been knocking on our apartment's door and ringing our doorbell repeatedly for 10 minutes, on and off. My husband thought maybe I could identify or recognize this person. Since the persistent doorbell ringing was gone, I tossed on something light to wear and tightened my grip on the ends of the sleeves. I tried warming my neck area up by breathing into the opening of my hoodie before heading over to the window. Still, my vision was blurred and puffy from the disrupted sleep. We were rather high up, second floor to be exact, so the view was expansive. We noticed a man outside just across the street from our unit, and my husband confirmed it was him. The man was walking to his car in our parking lot. He didn't look out of order at first. He had on blue jeans, a gray shirt. He was about a medium build with blonde hair and looked like he was around 30 years old. Nothing strange, but not until I noticed that his hands were carrying resistance bands or ropes of some sort. Now, coupled with the fact that he was persistently ringing our doorbell for 10 minutes at midnight, it created unsettling thoughts in my head. He got to his car and sat there for a moment. I began calling the local authorities and informed them of the situation. I must have been too preoccupied answering his questions with dispatch on the phone. That was when I noticed the man was no longer in his car. The parking lot light poles only illuminated so much. I tried glancing, but I couldn't spot him. And then came the knock. Our door was thick material, but they were heavy knocks, and the sound reverberated throughout the walls of our apartment. The dispatch made sure we were calm and advised me that the police were on their way. After a while, the knocking stopped. By the window, we could see him walking back to his vehicle. My first thought was to get evidence. My fingers were stiff, but I did my best while clenching my phone against the window. I read out the tag number, the make and the model to my husband. It was so strange. We watched the red car lights as he put his car in park and reversed, and almost endlessly, park to reverse, to park and reverse just over and over again. Out of seemingly nowhere, he backed out of the parking lot and started speeding away. Luckily, the police officer arrived just in time to pull him over. My downstairs neighbor had come up to our door by this point. She knocked on our apartment door and informed us that he'd been peering into her child's window and was aggressively pounding on her door as well. She said that her husband had left the apartment shortly before the door pounding began. Her eyes were dilated as I listened and consoled her. Still in her bathrobe, I could see her hugging and wrapping herself with her arms, almost like she needed protection. She said that the man saw her children through the window, and that's why he continuously pounded on the door. Despite our neighbor's first floor to our second floor difference, our entry doors were right next to one another. The man probably didn't know what door he wanted to open. He was watching us well through our upstairs window, so I turned off all the lights and shut the blinds while I called dispatch again. The police never requested a statement from us. I have reached out to dispatch about an update, and I'm waiting to see if any action was taken. We've been keeping our eyes peeled to see if he had been following us. I've considered replacing my porch light bulbs with motion detectors and putting bars on our window and door tracks. All I can say is we were rightfully panicked, spooked to say the least. He'd been outside for what seemed like an hour. Whatever he had intended to do, I think it's safe to say it was up to no good. I've been trained in firearms and live in a state where I can open carry, and background checks were quite quick. My husband and I are going this weekend to purchase a firearm. My husband is new to gun handling, so we got him into some firearm course, but I'm thankful we can get him acquainted with them as well. It's been some time, but I'm waiting on a report from the responding officer from that night. I was able to get a hold of his badge number and name, so if they don't reach back later, I'll just go ahead and call the substation. I'm starting to suspect that nothing was ever done about this incident. If I hear nothing back, I'm going to put in a suspicious persons case for a paper trail of that night. Looking back, the video I recorded of the man's car was pretty disturbing. I think it was the uncanny feeling of him reversing and parking. It felt so strange and disordered. The next day, I had gotten off work and I had just finished eating with my husband. I took our dog out for a walk to relieve themselves. Unfortunately, my shoes kept getting covered by mud on our apartment trail. I didn't mind it, since the breeze was always nice after raining. Usually when it gets closer to night, everything kind of blends into an abstract darkness. Rippling of cold water could be heard as vehicles drove by. However, there was one particular car driving very slowly. It had parked a few parking spots down from where my dog was grazing the scenery. I couldn't make out the figure inside the car as other vehicles were parked beside and blocking my peripheral view. They just sat there in the car with the engine running. All of a sudden, my ears were just a mess. They started to ring and sent an uneasy ache on my temple. I started to get this awful, nauseating feeling. It sounds cliche, but I wish I were joking. I turned around and went home. I felt terrible because I realized I never gave my dog enough time to finish up their business. I got inside, shut and locked every door and window. I made sure every blind was pulled down. I think the man was staking out the apartment building, lurking, and looking for another entryway. I think he wanted to get into where my neighbor's children were. I'll update more when I have new information, but for now, to the man who knocks, well, it's not me.